Final word daily, Adam Collins and Jeff Lemon back together at the Gabba, the Woolen Gabba here in Brisbane. And what a day of Test cricket it was to start the series between Australia and South Africa, which Jeff will summarise. 15 wickets, 30 seconds. Good luck.
South Africa got sent in, bowled out for 152, wickets shared around, Scott Boland multiple in and over, of course. Looked like they were screwed. Then they come back, Australia 3 for 27, they're on top, then they're not. Travis Head and Steve Smith banged together 114 in about 5 minutes. Travis Head still out there, 70 odd not out, 2 more wickets fall. Australia 5 down, 7 runs behind. Can the South Africans get back into it? Maybe they can, they probably can't, but maybe they can.
Quite the day of cricket. So Verreynne top scores with 64, he put on 98 in Temba Bavuma, but they were already 4 for 27 by that stage after the Scott Boland double wicket maiden as a few birds fornicate above us here in the grandstand.
There are a lot of crows. We're not in Adelaide, but there are many crows. And you will be able to hear them if you listen to the show.
It is distracting. We'll push on. But Verreynne batted really nicely for his 64, but then the collapse came. So at one stage, they're 4 for 125. They're all out for 152. So what's that? 6 for 27. They lose in that collapse.
I think the collapse had already come. There'd been the collapse and then the other collapse. The two halves of the collapse.
That's true.
There was a momentary interregnum of the collapse. It was like Christmas Day 1914 when the Germans and the English played football of the collapse, in which it was like, let's stop collapsing for, say, an hour.
For 25 overs it was.
Either side of the lunch break. And then we'll come back and finish collapsing later.
That sounds pretty fair. Yeah. To my way of seeing it, it was almost a direct replica of what happened to England 12 months ago, except, of course, England elected to win the toss and bat on a pitch that looked, perhaps not quite as green as this, but did about as much as this. England were
way cloudy,
3 down early.
Way more like muggy and moist and cloudy.
Yeah, for all of that. But just a scorecard. They were 3 for 27 early. I think today it was 4 for 27. They were 4 down at lunch, and they were all out for 147 on the stroke of tea. South Africa all out for 152 on the stroke of tea, about 2 overs difference all told. So in terms of wickets, 3 for Stark, he's 1 away from 300, 2 for Cummins, 1 early, 1 late, got Vanderdas and caught behind, got the last wicket. Boland, the double wicket maiden, his second over of the day, which meant for a time his bowling average went back to 9.65 again.
9.65.
Green didn't get a wicket. Nathan Lyon 3 for 14 from 8, could have easily been 5 or 6. Lyon did everything right. Bowling
Nathan
on a track that he loves.
Took 3 in 15 balls without conceding a run at one point.
It was like that. He was just on the mark today. Bowling, I would say, a more aggressive line. They used to call it the Australian up line, didn't they, for off spinners? Wider of the off stump. I know that, for example, Ian Healy's big on this, that Lyon doesn't bowl wide of the off stump enough. And when he does, bloody hell, like today, they were, on day one this is, it was like he was bowling these gigantic off cutters, but they were off breaks.
Yeah, and there was one that turned about 4 feet and went down the leg side for 4 byes. He was getting prodigious bounce and turn. But by the time he came on, by the time he was bowling his second over, literally, he almost wasn't needed because they were going to wrap that innings up pretty quickly. It was interesting how it started. You got South Africa coming here. They've got to get all G'd up. They're taking on Australia. Here we go. We've got a substandard batting lineup. We've got good bowling. We're going to take them on. Oh shit, we've been sent in. We have to bat first. Okay, we've got Dean Elgar. He's the guy who's got to bat through and bat long. And instead, he's the guy who gloves one down the leg side for 3, was it?
Yep.
And gives the catch to Alex Carey. Gives Mitchell Stark a wicket off a terrible delivery. And that sort of felt like everything for South Africa. It was like, air out of the balloon. They're not going to be able to do this. And look, there was a bit of resistance. Sarel Evia did his best for a while, sort of hung in there and played a couple of nice drives down the ground. But yeah, Cummins picks up the second wicket after bowling badly for his first couple of overs. Couldn't get the radar, was bowling too short, beating the edge, but way too short. Over pitches and gets driven a couple of times, and then almost the first time he gets his Cummins patented line and length right, caught behind. Barassi, see you later.
Yeah, it felt like, I agree with you, it was the first perfect ball he bowled, but it was the pressure in the previous over from Cummins when he got it a bit fuller. And Scott Boland said at lunch on telly that they wanted to bowl fuller, but I don't think they did bowl that full in the first session. When they got it right, they were very hard to play, and Boland showed that, having Evia caught in the gully. Great catch from Cameron Green moving to his left, and a couple of balls later, Zondo leg before wicket with one that came back sharply and hit him on the flat, but he's such a short fella that it was still clipping the off bail. So Boland goes bang bang at the start. Then that fantastic partnership.
He loves taking more than one in an over.
Doesn't he just?
Why take 1 wicket in an over, Scott Boland, when you can take more than one? And that's what he does.
He's probably done it now. We did it twice at the MCG. Once
in
at
Adelaide.
once in Sydney,
Yep.
once in Adelaide. So it's 5 times in Test cricket he's had multiple wickets in the over already. Yes, outstanding. But yeah, and you turn the page, and I mean, look, that partnership, I really like.
I enjoyed that partnership. It was a fun partnership.
Verreynne is a good player.
Yeah.
Verreynne is like full stop. Verreynne is a good cricketer, resourceful. I like that he at one point he placed the ball between third slip and gully, but he watched it all the way down. He was trying to do that. Like there's a sense that he's willing to. I mean, excuse the horrible cliche, but he's a bit of a Baz bowler. Like he's always looking to score no matter what the situation. And today, when the counter-attack was required, he had the skills for it.
And he took on the short stuff as well. So there's an over from Green where he goes pull shot for 4, uppercut for 6 in the space of an over. At that point, he'd only scored 1 run. He goes to 11 off 11 balls, and you're like, okay, here we go, happy days. And he doesn't go at quite that clip. He ends up at a strike rate of 70-odd, but he was looking to score. He took on the short ball. He played pull shots over mid-wicket a lot, and he played that glide through the cordon, I reckon, 4 times maybe. It kept happening. And I kept seeing it being talked about as like he's edged it. I don't think he really was edging it. He was quite deliberately placing that ball there. Interesting for him. I mean, he's got this really good first-class record. Today was his 12th Test match, and before this point, he'd made 100.
That's it.
And otherwise never topped 40. His next best score was 39.9. So this was his first official half century. He gets to 64. He does the business, and Verreynne just recognises, okay, well this guy's playing well, so I'm just going to score ones. I'm just going to get off strike when I can, and try to run him out about 7 times. Which, I mean, their running between the wickets was woeful, but they managed to survive and they managed to put on that stand.
You know, I admired the way Verreynne played through the offside, lavishly on a number of occasions, but it all comes apart. They're all out for 152. We turned the page. That final session, how many overs were bowled in it? There was 33.1 overs bowled in it.
4 hours, that final session.
And David Warner is out to the first ball of it. Let's start there before we get to the really exciting bit. David Warner out first ball at the worst possible time because of... Well, you want to jump in?
Well, just to say, 1 other golden duck in his career.
Yes.
And he's never been out from the first ball of the innings before.
Okay, right, that lines up, because he used to never face the first ball until a couple of years ago. But first ball here, Rabada gets big on him. The comparison's been made by everybody else, so why not us as well? When Ricky Ponting fell over 10 years ago when Jacques Kallis bowled him, there was a sense that, this is the point where his eyes have gone. Unfair as it was a lovely ball from Jacques Kallis. I've always kind of defended Ponting on that front, but it was the symbolism of falling down. To me, Warner, playing with one hand off the bat with his eyes shut, prompted a similar set of feelings, I think. And I mean, Jeff, we didn't get a chance to really talk about this on the Daily Show last week when I was doing it with Bharat. But we did get into the idea that it's no kind of character assassination, or it's no sort of overarching criticism of a great career to say that at 36 he might be on the decline. His numbers post-COVID, or even from COVID starting, all those series averages, nothing higher than 34. This has been going on for a couple of years now, and that's fine. That's okay. David Warner's been an all-time great. It's just that I think we've probably crossed the precipice that even if he were to make runs here and at Melbourne, I kind of still think that it might be the right time. You don't want to, and Ricky Ponting said this on 7, you don't want a great of the game to get to India, have 2 poor Test matches, Australia to be 1 down or something, and go, sorry, Davey, you're retiring. You want him to be able to do it on his own terms, do it at the SCG, and that feels like it might line up really well with what's ahead of them.
I can see that. I don't necessarily think he's gone. I think people love death riding a player towards the end of their career. A lot of people who watch the game love nothing more than wondering when someone's going to retire, and they'll spend about the final 10 years of someone's career going, could retire. Is he going to retire this year? Is he going to retire next year? And so on. I've heard people saying, I couldn't make any runs against the West Indies. You're like, well, he made 48 against the West Indies. But that doesn't count because they're a shit team. Okay, but you were just mad that he wasn't making runs against the West Indies, and now the runs he did make doesn't count. Hasn't made 100 in a long time. Well, he made 94 and 95 in the Ashes less than a year ago to help set up an Ashes win. I agree that he's not the player that he was, but I don't think that we know conclusively that that's a permanent state, or whether it's a product of the fact that his head's muddled, he's had a shit couple of months, he's unhappy, he's distracted, and a whole lot of other things are going on. I think we've seen over the last few years he's not as good facing fast short bowling as he once was. I don't think he ever loved facing really fast short bowling, but he's not that same player, but I don't think it necessarily follows that he's done.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the other side of it is the 94 and 95 he made he was rattled by fast bowling. And what do you think England are going to do next year?
Yeah.
So there's that. They'll obviously bombard him.
Well, what England will do is have 6 fast bowlers get injured, and then they'll go in with a bunch of 74 mile an hour.
Those 74 mile an hour is not the broad bowls that, but was enough to work him over last time. So there are lots of different parts to this, but if I were Warner, and it's hard to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's been a professional athlete for as long as he is, but I'd also be thinking about former colleagues of his who had a really bad end and their batting averages took a tumble. And, Ponting is one of those. He was a 60-plus guy for ages and finished with a batting average of, 52 or 53. Which is still brilliant, by the way, but it didn't need to be that way had he not gone on. The other obvious example is Michael Clarke, who his average only dropped beneath 50 for his last few Test matches. And in hindsight, I think Clarke himself said that he should have retired after his century at Adelaide in 2014. So, yeah, that might be playing in his mind, it might not. I mean, Warner being Warner, the more we talk about it, the more he'll want to stick it to everybody. But he's a savvy dude, so...
He'll want to play in the Olympics in Brisbane.
That's right, here at the Gabba. That started, a very exciting passage of play. Marnus Labuschagne out to the first ball that Marco Jansen bowled in Australia. Both Labuschagne and subsequently Khawaja, they were both caught in the cordon for 11. In Khawaja's case, it was from Nortje's second delivery in Australia, so in consecutive overs. Both of them tried to take weight out of their hands. In Khawaja's case, his whole hand was off the bat. But such was the pace and carry of Brisbane. I love this track already.
And Nortje bowling 150 clicks.
No, but that wasn't 150 clicks. The point is, it obviously is quick, but it's more that the track gives so much, even if you're trying to take weight out of it, if it clips the edge, it's going to carry through at a catchable height. And Simon Harmer, the sub, getting one of those catches at third slip, Dean Elgar the other at second, and they were up and about.
Yeah, and I mean, Marnus has not been nicking into the cordon. That is not a thing that he's been doing lately.
No.
The left armour with the angle across, and Labuschagne was playing for a bit of in-swing, I fancy, and it sort of looked like it was going to swing in for a bit and then went on straight, so that ends up taking the edge. And the Khawaja one, there was very little he could do. It exploded at him. It got proper bounce from a not that short a length. And in the end, it was sort of shoulder of the bat almost, and flies off into the cordon. So,
this is it with Nortje. That was a quick delivery, but it's more like, what I'm trying to say is it's the rapid bounce. Like that might sound a bit like why is bounce all not all the same? On some surfaces, it just rears up, and for whatever reason, like someone like Jofra Archer gets rapid bounce, and so does Nortje.
Yeah, and it was exciting. Like at that point, you go, okay, Australia 27 for 3. South Africa had been 27 for 3, then 27 for 4. So, do Australia lose another wicket there? Do they end up in the same position? Steve Smith comes out, cover drives his very first ball off Jansen for 4, plays a couple of lovely straight drives, that little on drive just to the onside of straight that he played. So he's ready to get going. He's getting stuck into it from the get-go. And Travis Head comes out and pokes a little bit, and then he gets that edge into the cordon, and it bounces just in front of Elgar. And Elgar comes up to the square leg umpire, not appealing, but saying, I don't know, I might have caught it. Can you have a look? They decide that he hasn't caught it. Travis Head survives. That's the only chance-ish kind of thing that he gives in his innings. And then he just goes, you know what, I'm going to take down everything. Whatever you bowl at me. Any width, I'm going to carve it. I'm going to hit it down the ground. And he brings up 50 in 48 balls with a 6. It's outrageous. And I was sitting there watching it, and I'm like, I genuinely don't know how he does it, right? Like, he looks less chancy and less dicey than he did as a player, say, a year or two ago. He looks more in command and in control. But how does a player, when a team's bowling that well, say, I think I'll just take him apart for a runner ball 70 on and pull it off? How does he do it?
I mean, he was on track for a century in a session. Let's just go through it. So it was a 23-over partnership worth 117, which started with part 1, an absolutely peppering Head, with the short stuff and with, outside the off stump. He was playing with both feet off the ground routinely. Smith down the other end, leaving balls going the full pirouette. I wouldn't say it was as extravagant as last year, but, we've spoken to Smith before.
Whoopi Goldberg, Sister Act 2.
What Smith's spoken before about when he needs to really concentrate to that next level, he starts with it. And look, that reflects how dicey the situation was. Then they break the back of it. You mentioned Head, he hit down the ground so well a couple of times. They got into a groove, they both got to 20. Then he moves from, I would say, 30 to 57 in about 20 balls Head. And I said on comms, whisper it, century in a session coming our way. And that is when they slow down. The last part of their partnership, to the credit of Rabada and Ngidi, after Ngidi went around for 15 from his first over of the spell, Maharaj had 17 taken from 2 overs, I think it was, to start. Rabada shut things down. Ngidi played his role as well.
Yeah.
And Nortje comes back at the end of the day to bowl the delivery of the day, an off-cutter at, I didn't see the radar, it must have been around 150, back through the gate, hitting the top of Smith's middle stump. The stuff you dream of when you're a bowler like Nortje. Gets them the night watchman for the close of play, which we'll come to in a second, the Hall of Fame. It's Boland, he edges off, stumps, and it's 5 down, 7 in arrears, and it's game on again.
Yeah, so Boland does his job because he gets them into the last over, and then Nick's Rabada, so cool, he's got them to stumps, no worries. But it's the previous over against Nortje, that's the one that they really need him to see out, and he does. Even, I mean, coming out, it's getting dark, the guy's bowling 150 Ks, and you're Scott Boland, you're like, I'm here to bowl, I'm not here to do this.
Yeah.
Did it, protected Cameron Green from maybe coming out and gloving a bouncer or something like that. But yeah, I mean, the delivery that Nortje bowled to Smith, the movement on that was about half a foot. Like, to beat Steve Smith on the inside edge, you've got to bowl a pretty special delivery.
Too right. I mean, teams have been trying to get Steve Smith that way for a decade, and it's probably happened thrice.
Yes.
And today was one of those, and Nortje is a special talent. Both he and Janssen getting wickets early on to get going. Janssen bowled so well at the start. He's already a star at 22. I mean, it's a shame in a way they didn't get the chance to bowl first. I know Dean Elgar said at the toss they would have batted had they won the toss. I'm sure he is lying because it's the way Dean Elgar
Totally
is.
calling bullshit on that.
And I love Dean Elgar for doing it that way. Like
he is so stubborn that he's like, there is no way I will concede that we didn't get what we want. This is exactly what we wanted.
And head finishes, more than 70. He's 78 not out from 77 balls. A sparkling effort. A couple of times punching through cover through the X as a gap there. Dean Elgar's like, what have I got to do here? Throwing his head back in the cordon. Then they put a fielder there. But then they put a fielder there. Next ball, head gets inside the line and clips a 6 to move to 50. You're like, you feel for a skipper in a situation like that. You know, speaking ahead a little bit on air and off in the last couple of weeks, he just feels free. He just feels free. I think that he came into the summer feeling a bit nervous about his spot in the side. 99 relatively risk-free runs at Perth. Batted his socks off at Adelaide in the first innings last week. And now he's in that zone where he's like, he's probably already thinking, I can go really big tomorrow. And that's a great place to be as a cricketer. It doesn't happen too often.
While everyone else is getting out around him. I mean, it's extraordinary. Like, South Africa could come out and knock off Australia for another 30 runs tomorrow if he edges off early, or he could come out and make another 130.
Well, like here last year, he made 152 and about 140 balls and 85 ball century, so he won't quite get to three figures that quickly tomorrow, but it's a similar, you know, the rhythm of the day was like for like, and it was just the fact that last year they got rained off at tea. This year we got to see a full session.
The rhythm of the night, however, that is another thing.
That's to come.
Bang and track that we'll be playing straight after this. Yeah, look, it was thrilling. I loved it. I loved watching Travis Head do this crazy thing, and he's done it enough times now that you're like, maybe he can keep doing it. Like maybe he can be consistent playing this way. If he can. It'll be.
I hope so.
It'll be something to see.
I hope he gets to go to do it in England because he's the best antidote to bat. Sorry, again, I'm falling into a bit of a trope here, but if England are batting at 6 and over, Head's the one dude who can, you know, kind of go with them and not wilt in the face of that kind of pressure. If they try and go that way, he's that guy for Australia at the moment. Hall of Fame.
Yes.
We are sport for choice today. Jeff, you go first then.
Well, I just want to say Woodstock Cricket, get 20% off a bat, TFW20.
Woodstockcricket.co.uk.
Okay, what have we got? I liked when the substitute fielder, Simon Harmer, takes the catch in the cordon, off Usman Khawaja, and jumps up, and I'm like, what's going on the back of his shirt? And he's got Harmy with an I written on the back of his shirt.
And different font. Look at his shirt tomorrow. Harmer and the number is in different font to everybody else's.
Right.
Maybe he didn't expect to be playing this match, and thus this series didn't send him the new kit.
Did he just draw it on with a permanent marker?
Yeah.
Is it a thing where in Victoria he's Simon Harmer, but in New South Wales he's a Simon Harmy?
What about the fact that he...
Nationwide, he's Harmo, just to try to bridge the differences between... If you put a bit of cheese on him and a bit of ham, a bit of tomato sauce... then when we can have great pointless arguments.
Is he going to be a potato cake or a potato scallop?
Exactly.
That's the real argument at the core of this. Potato cake, of course.
Only subjects that Australian political journalists engage with online. That's how they connect with the people.
I just think with the Harmer thing as well, what was good was that takes a catch at third slip when Ngidi's off the field, straight back off the field again as the sub. Love it when a sub fielder pays off straight away. Steve Smith dancing around, I mentioned it before, but we haven't seen that in a while. Scott Boland. I think Nathan Lyon's been punted. He's only been night watchman for fucking 20 years, Nathan Lyon.
But I don't think he ever liked doing it. I don't think he enjoyed it.
He was quite good at it.
Yeah.
He did it. I mean, you get it's a specialist role.
Right.
You probably do it, 3 times a year? But Lyon, therefore, would have done it about 30 times. I mean, I know, but just on that, we got a bit of correspondence.
I'd love to crunch your stats. How many, 6 and up in the order spots is Lyon?
A bit of correspondence that came in. I should have committed this to memory who it came from, and it's bang on. 5 balls to go in today's play. There's still 3 minutes to go, but because we're in the final over, they walk off. We should push to get that law changed. I mean, if you take a wicket in the final over, complete the bloody over. For that. Complete the over. They should have got 5 more balls at Australia tonight.
Well, I think it was, but because they give you 3 minutes, don't they, to come out?
It's a time thing.
That's the allowance, and therefore they're like, well, by the time you've used up your 3 minutes, it's past stumps.
I don't know. I just think that's something they should reconsider in the modern era. The idea of walking off to make sure they meet their meal times, when nothing else seems to, I mean, meal times are moved around so often. I would have that in the back of my mind. And this is not Hall of Fame necessarily, but I just think it's worth noting on the way through. The ceremony before play today to the murdered cops in Queensland during the week was, I mean, that was as emotional as anything I've ever seen at the cricket ground. It was so utterly tragic what happened last week, and I know we, occasionally make fun of crazy people on the internet, but to think that that has been the genesis for a series of events that's led towards 2 police officers being killed in service this week is just beyond belief.
Third civilian who's just,
of course,
happens to be around the area trying to find out what's going on.
Just so awful, and the way the players commemorated that, and the police officers who were in tears as well. It was hard not to be.
And I think the round of applause, that's what really stood out. The MC, James Cherry, doing a more somber job than his usual style. He's trying to do the next bit. He's done we do the round of applause. Now we'll have a minute's silence, but the applause just kept going.
Yeah,
we just had to wait and wait. It was a really organic, natural moment from that crowd saying we're not ready to stop yet.
So that is the Hall of Fame. Thanks to woodstockcricket.co.uk TFW20 for 20% off the best bats in the world. And that's us done as well. Good to have Jeff back on the Daily Show. You can listen to Story Time that we recorded at Jeff's house in Melbourne a couple of days ago. If I do say so myself, it's a pretty bloody good episode.
Strong story time.
Right, we're going to go to the pub. This has been a great day of Test cricket. See you tomorrow. Ta-da.
See ya.